Well, welcome everyone to the Bold Story Press marketing webinar. We have two distinguished experts in the field of book marketing who are joining us this evening from Books Forward. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. But first, I'm Emily Barras, and I'm the founder and CEO of Bold Story Press, which is a small hybrid press for women authors only. So Books Forward is a literary publicity company that has represented over 1,300 books in 22 years and exemplifies excellence in book marketing and author branding. Their experienced team, made up uniquely of former journalists, publishing insiders, and influencers, represents New York Times bestsellers, national award-winning books, and stories that catch fire on social media. The veteran PR firm creates ambitious campaigns with limitless possibilities for securing national and regional media coverage, sparking reader and industry buzz and creatively cutting through the noise of 3,000 books published on average each day. Ellen Whitfield is the PR director, and Marissa DeCuir is the president of Books Forward, both formerly working in journalism and always looking for the best hooks to utilize in author publicity and book marketing. They believe in taking a personal and strategic can-do approach to help authors reach their goals. Ellen is also a popular bookstagrammer who uses that experience to help Books Forward authors reach this community of avid readers. And Marissa, I'm sorry I didn't ask before, but did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Yes, it's perfect.
Wonderful. Well, welcome to both of you, and thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you, Emily. We're so excited. I've been communicating with Emily for a while now, and we've worked with a few Bold Story Press authors, and I was just telling her earlier that we get about 10 authors writing us a day interested in working with us, and Bold Story Press authors stand out so much. She really has a knack for this industry, and not only like having an eye for what a good book can be, but getting it into shape and putting it out in the marketplace in the best form and way that it can be. And so we just have major kudos for you, Emily, at what you do at Bold Story Press. And we're really excited to be here. We love helping authors. This is definitely not a sales presentation of trying to hire Books Forward. We love what we do, and we understand not every author even has the budget for marketing. So we are just here to help you. You have our full attention and focus. And Ellen's going to go over a presentation of kind of some first steps, to take when you start thinking about your marketing and promotion. And then from there, we're here to answer any questions, and very much looking forward to those. If you have any comments that you want to leave in the chat box throughout the presentation, go ahead and leave those as well, and we'll answer those. And Ellen, you can take it from here.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen for the first half of the presentation, just to kind of go over things with y'all, and then I'll turn it off so that we can kind of see each other and do a little bit of a Q&A, either addressing questions that you guys had in the chat box or just anything that came up organically as we are working our way through the presentation. So thank you guys for being here. We're very excited. Let's see if I can figure the technology out. All right, now we're rolling. All right, so you guys know we're Books Forward, and this is obviously us. We've been working together for a number of years, and this truly is one of our favorite things to do, is talk with authors one-on-one and, just help you guys figure out things that are good fits for you. General overview, I always like to start by saying that a lot of authors are very overwhelmed when it comes to next steps beyond, okay, my book is written, it's in the editing stages, now what do I do as far as publicity goes? That's very normal, because there are a lot of options out there, and there's a lot you can do. So taking a deep breath, taking a step back, and I don't know if anyone watched Parks and Recreation, that Amy Poehler show, and excuse my language here, Ron Swanson at some point tells her, she's kind of running on fumes and trying to do everything. He tells her, Never half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. So if you can kind of think about, what are my goals? What do I want to do? And what do I want to accomplish with that book? That'll help you take a step back and look at, is this going to help me accomplish my goal? And that keep looking back at that will help guide you kind of on your marketing journey. And when you think about those goals, you can think about, what are my short-term goals? So that might be just for this book. And what are my long-term goals? And so that might be more for author branding or your career as an author, or, this might be a building block for book 2. And that's not going to be every author. Some authors just want to do one book and then they're satisfied with that. And that's totally fine. But those goals are going to look a little bit different. And then having pie in the sky goals is awesome too. If you want to hit the indie bestseller list or something like that, or if you want to get, a starred review from Kirkus, it's great to put that on your list too, and think about ways to accomplish that. And I also like to tell authors not to forget to celebrate what they've already accomplished, because so many people grow up saying, oh, I want to write a book or I want to become an author. And you guys actually have done that, which is, I think, probably a very small percentage of people who have that dream. I kind of think of it as all the kids who play t-ball growing up, and then the kids who go on to join the major leagues. So that's a big deal. And I think taking a step back to celebrate that is very important too. And then thinking ahead is a good thing to do for any of those long-term goals that you have. Considering larger branding opportunities is really important. So, for example, when you're building a website, if this is your first book, you don't necessarily want it to be the title of your first book. You want it to be maybe your author name, or, Ellen Whitfield author.com or something like that, because you're going to build a readership for this book. But then when you have a second book come out, or if you have another project you work on, having that all under your author name, rather than having to build a new website every time or change a domain name or something like that, is going to help you kind of streamline that process. So anything like that, when you are considering marketing opportunities, thinking about this book, but also thinking about your author brand in general, is really helpful. And another way to do that is social media as well. Obviously, you want to create a social media profile if you're going to do that under your name, under your author name, pen name, if you're using one, instead of maybe like a fan page for the book or something like that, because that's going to help you in the long term and help your reader, make it easier for your readers to find you. We're going to dive a little bit more into social media, since I know that is something that pretty much everyone wants to talk about a little bit. There are different audiences for different platforms. And I think it is in almost everybody's best interest to figure out what audience they're trying to go for, whether that's genre or an age range or something like that. And then trying to spend time on those platforms that cater to that audience, instead of, again, trying to do a little bit of everything, really focusing on the platforms that make sense for you and your audience, so that because you're going to get better reach. You're not going to burn out as easily as you would otherwise if you were trying to do everything. So we talk a lot about these 4: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Twitter. Facebook has been around for the longest. There are different audiences there. Books with trying to get into an older demographic tend to do better on Facebook. But that's probably the most general platform, I would say, Facebook and Twitter, that everybody kind of should and can try, because different books find success on there. Instagram tends to be a little bit of a younger audience, and obviously is very focused on aesthetics, book covers. So if you have an amazing book cover, you definitely want to be on Instagram to help promote that. If your audience that you're writing for is maybe in their 20s to 50s, that's a great audience there. Not to say that you can't, again, something you can try and figure out, is this working for me? Do I think I'm reaching the right readers? And then kind of trying that against the other platforms. TikTok is probably the newest platform, and it is definitely a younger demographic. It's much more of the kind of millennial mindset. There's a lot more focus on very quick things. It's a lot more face-based, I would say. So if you're going to be on TikTok, you have to kind of be comfortable with making videos where you're interacting, which some authors are not. So thinking about that, we tend to see kind of YA and fantasy and books like that doing well on this platform. So again, kind of taking a tour of them, seeing what you're comfortable with as far as what you have to do to keep engagement levels up and things like that is helpful. TikTok and Instagram, you kind of need to have constant engagement in order to, I hesitate to find success, but to keep growing, you probably need to have constant engagement, whether that's a couple times a week. For TikTok, even more often is usually successful. Whereas Facebook and Twitter, that's not necessarily as important. Of course, you want to continue to engage with people, but the algorithm doesn't seem to be as harsh on people who are not on there 24/7 for Facebook and Twitter. I like to encourage authors to set a schedule for posting or for interacting on social media platforms, because I think a lot of us think of social media as kind of a break from work or, something we do for fun. But in actuality, in this phase of your author journey, this is going to be something that you are doing for work. So setting aside a schedule to engage with people, to post, to make sure that you have touched base with different people, or you're retweeting things, or you're commenting on people's posts, that can be really helpful. And that can be saying Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon, I'm going to spend an hour on my chosen apps, engaging with people, and just kind of reading up, seeing what's out there. But that will definitely help make sure that you are, again, feeding the algorithm, but you're also going to be reaching out to fans, reaching out to other authors, things like that. And when you are reaching out to other authors, I mean, you guys know, obviously, a good author community is really key to your author journey. You're going to want to engage with other authors for support. They are going to have tips, especially more seasoned authors that you may never have thought of, or that you can reach out to and ask, hey, have you ever run into this? Or have you ever done this? You can even possibly set up like virtual events together, in-person events together if you're in the same location. If you're going to be both going to festivals, that can be really nice to meet up with your internet friends at those kind of events. So building a strong author community on these platforms is really helpful. It's a lot of fun, and it's going to give you a lot of information that you didn't know you needed. And then, of course, engaging with your followers, engaging with readers to help build your own audience is super important. And that can just be having a conversation. Oh, I love that book. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Or, commenting on their posts, retweeting things. Really, any kind of engagement is helpful. Any kind of positive engagement is helpful, I should say. We'll talk a little bit go a little bit more into more detail with events. One of the most important things you can do as an author is to build relationships with booksellers and librarians. I'm sure that I don't have to tell you guys, I assume you're all book lovers, but those are going to be some of the most important people in the life of a book. Whether it's a bookseller hand selling books or choosing it for their shelves, or a librarian ordering copies for their shelves, getting it in front of readers, things like that. So, really helping to build that relationship in your community or anywhere you travel is a wonderful thing to do. Indie booksellers are, generally some of the most gracious and welcoming people around. So bringing them a treat, bringing them an early copy of your book. If you don't have that, bringing a press kit. Really, any of that kind of outreach can go a long way. And the same with librarians, asking if they'd be interested in just learning a little bit more about your book, stopping by if that's something you're comfortable with, can be super important, not only for your book, but also for your author career as a whole. If you are thinking about setting up a launch event, which right now seems like a possibility, for a lot of people. You don't necessarily have to be limited to a bookstore. Sometimes, I mean, that's obviously kind of the go-to option because they are set up to sell books, and they have probably hosted launch events before. But if there's a good fit for you, if you have a favorite restaurant and you have a relationship there, see if they'd be willing to host that for you. And you can, reach out to an indie bookseller about selling books at the event. You also, we had a children's book author in the past, and her book was about the discovery of the microwave, or microwaves. So we actually set up her launch at a children's museum, which was a lot of fun for the kids. It was a lot of fun for her, and they ended up selling her book in their gift shop. So kind of thinking outside of the box can be really helpful there. Think creatively what fits your book, what makes it unique, what's the niche. Making sure you can bring enough people is super key, because the bookstore is a business. They want to sell books, but also for you, you want it to be an enjoyable event. You want it to be filled with people who are there to support you. And, a lot of times I think authors think, oh, well, the bookstore will provide the crowd. But sometimes I tell them to think like, when was the last time you went to a bookstore event where you didn't know the person? It's probably fairly rare. Some people are regulars, and that is wonderful. You are salt of the earth. But for a lot of people, it's not something that they regularly do, is attend author events unless they have some connection. So really doing your best to make sure you have 15 to 20 people there at a minimum who are going to be there to support you and support the book can be really helpful. And it's helpful to sell the bookstore on hosting an event. You can also, if you're not wanting to just do a launch event, if you're wanting to do more than that, you can kind of think creatively there as well. So instead of just doing a launch event, you can do Q&As with other authors. You can do a reading with, if there's a poet or a musician, you could do something like that. We had an author a while back who had a lot of folklore in his book, and he brought in a local college's expert on that like era of folklore to speak with him at the event. So that provided a different perspective. One of our crime fiction authors set up kind of a tour where he spoke with a different author at every location on a different subject. So, this was in 2020. So they talked a lot about what is our responsibility with how we're writing police forces as crime fiction writers. He lives in DC, so he talked a lot about the richness of writers in the DC area. So every stop on his tour had a different conversation with a different partner, and it was on a different topic. So that ensured that he was going to get a different audience every time and make sure that it could appeal to a different crowd of people, again, to make sure that those events were filled. Other in-person options, a lot of times authors can set up stock signings for themselves or just stop by. And that's when you go to a bookstore and you see if they have copies of your book. And if they do, you ask if they want signed copies and you can sign the book. Sometimes it's helpful to call in advance to make sure that they have books in stock. And if they don't, you can ask them, do you want to order it? Because it may not be on their radar. I mean, there's just so many books out there. So they may not know that you're a local author. So giving them a heads up, asking them if they want to order a couple copies and if you can stop by and sign them, can be very beneficial. I also recommend doing this if you're traveling. Calling stores where you'll be traveling ahead of time, seeing if they have any copies, and offering to sign some, because signed copies sell better. So there's an incentive for them to do that as well. And again, you're founding these bookstore relationships, and it's also, probably going to sell more copies if you're able to sign them. So that can be something that's really helpful. As we all know, in the past 2 years, virtual events have kind of exploded. In 2020 itself, there were a ton of virtual events. I mean, it was just left, right. Everybody was doing any kind of virtual event that they could. What we saw at the end of 2020 and going into 2021 was a lot of booksellers taking a step back, and realizing that financially virtual events were not necessarily working as they wanted them to. So they were spending money staffing these events because there have to be people to host them and do conversations, things like that. But they were not seeing a lot of book sales from these events, whether it was because they were doing so many or there's not the same push. I know when I go to a book event, I'm always going to buy a book because I just want to have it for the author to sign or, but for a virtual event, there's not necessarily that tactile feeling of you're getting that book right away. So they kind of took a step back last year and they were a little more limited with what they were setting up for virtual events. Where we are now, we're seeing a lot more people going back into in-person events. Some people are preferring to stick to virtual. I think one thing that's really nice is when people are doing in-person events, there's almost always a virtual option now, which is really, really helpful for people who are, not still, quarantining or just may not have the availability or be able to come to those events. So there are a lot of different options. It's kind of just seeing what stores are doing, what locations are doing, what local mandates are, things like that. And of course, that's always subject to change given the nature of where we are right now. And talk a little bit about digital marketing and what moves the needles for sales numbers. And importantly, what sparks the algorithm. And when I say the algorithm, most of the time I'm talking about Amazon. So Amazon is this big, mysterious force. And one thing that we recommend a lot to help spark the algorithm, which is basically the mysterious formula that Amazon uses for search results, basically. So if I type in Caroline in the search bar on Amazon, the first things that pop up are going to be the authors with the name Caroline who have sold a lot of books, or titles with the name Caroline who have sold a lot of books. So that's kind of what the algorithm determines, is how those search results are listed. So some things you can do to help there are reader newsletters. And one that people have heard of a lot is BookBub. So basically what this is a daily email that goes out to people who subscribe to it. BookBub is the largest, I believe. It has like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and it goes out every day and it says, hey, here are the ebooks that are on sale today. So if you're a thrifty ebook shopper like I am, you're going to check your email. You're going to say, oh, I was interested in that, but I didn't necessarily want to spend $8.99. But now that it's 99 cents, I'll take a chance on that. Sure. And now my Kindle is filled with hundreds of ebooks that I will never, ever get to read. But that is another story. But that is a sale for that author. So if you coordinate a price drop with your publisher, you can set up these reader newsletters to advertise that the book is on sale, and that almost always spikes your sales numbers, and it sparks that algorithm because Amazon pays attention and they're like, oh, yesterday this book was, a millionth in total sales, and today it's 5,000, which is really great. And so that's kind of what gets it to pay attention to your book and make sure that it's has kind of constant sales activity on it. Facebook ads are another really great option for people looking at digital marketing. I like Facebook ads a lot because you get kind of constant feedback on how your ads are doing. We do a lot of A/B testing to see what works, what doesn't work, and kind of you're able to continually tweak things. If you find that something is working, it's approaching a certain group on Facebook is not working, you can tweak that, try something else. There's also different kinds of Facebook ads. You can run ads to have people sign up for a newsletter if you have that. You can run ads for like pre-orders or for, sales if your book is already out. And then you can also run, so what's the third kind that I'm not thinking
to build
of?
up your social media following.
Oh yeah. for following, like, so you can link to your Facebook page to get more Facebook followers, Instagram followers, and things like that. So there are different options depending on where you are in your sales journey and depending on your goals. So that's one thing that I think make Facebook ads really helpful for people, because they're fairly affordable and they're pretty easy to use. So setting that up is something that is really beneficial for people looking at digital marketing. Author networking. So this is something that we coach a lot of our authors on, because I think a lot of authors are a little bit more introverted and may not want to ask people in their network for help or tell them how they can help. But I always tell them to think about it as like, if your friend was publishing a book, you would want to do what you can to help them and support them, but you may not know what that is. They may not know how to support you. So giving them a list is never a bad option. Some of the things that we recommend is sending your friends and family a list with links, because that's going to make it much easier for them, rather than having to dig around for, oh, where's this book on Amazon or Google or whatever. The more you can give people, make things a one-stop shop where they don't have to click and click and click or Google around, the easier it's going to be and the better results you're going to have. So sending them links to the book on Amazon, Goodreads, any other websites where it's listed, Barnes and Noble, IndieBound, Bookshop, things like that, can be really helpful. I know you guys all know the importance of reviews. So having people rate and review your book and building that up is super helpful. They can also request that their local library order a copy. That can be ebook, it can be print, it can be audiobook. Any of those are great. And that shows the library that people are interested in it. Same with your local bookstore. If they can order a copy through their local bookstore, that shows the bookstore that people are interested in it. And it, gives the bookstore the opportunity to say like, oh, well, we're ordering one, we might as well order 5. You know what I mean? Something we use a lot is Goodreads lists. So if you go Google best fantasy books for my preteen girl, probably one of those top 5 search results is going to be a Goodreads list. And so we really encourage authors to kind of search around on the Goodreads lists function and find lists that are a good fit for your book. So that might be genre, it might be setting, it might be something about you, California writers or whatever the case may be. And adding your book to those lists, I would tell you to avoid like best books of all time, because those lists are like 300 books long and they're generic. Basically, you want it to be niche and unique to your book, because if the higher you can move in those lists, the more votes you can get on it, the more likely people are going to be to see your book and to say, oh, that does look like a good fit for me. And you can have other people vote on those lists to help them move up to the top of the list as well. Sharing and interacting with the author's social media posts. I don't think a lot of people realize how important that is, that kind of engagement on your social media posts, whether that's from you, from your publisher, from anybody who's posting about the book, is super, super important and super helpful. You can send them things to post about it if they're willing to do that, or if they're willing to just save, share your posts, that can be really helpful too. And then also making sure you're tailoring specific requests to people is very important. Like if your friend leads a book club, you can ask her, do you want, a couple copies to take a look at, possibly, choose your book for your book club. If you know somebody who knows somebody at the local newspaper, ask them if they'd be willing to share, that email address. Things like that. I think there are ways to ask for things without being pushy and just kind of gently see what's out there, what your options are. Media outreach. So there are different kinds of media outlets you can pursue. There are book bloggers, there are book influencers, there are radio and podcasts devoted to books, but there are also probably radio and podcasts devoted to something that your book is, the subject of your book, whether it's spirituality or health or a Southern radio show or something like that. There's going to be a podcast for that. I guarantee it. You can also write guest articles. And that's something that can be really valuable to try and get placement in an outlet that doesn't necessarily do a traditional book review, but they do guest articles. So what is something you're an expert on, and you can kind of relate back to your book a little bit. Thinking about that can be really helpful as far as, okay, what do I want to write about and where am I going to pitch this for placement? And when you do, please always include a bio with a link to your website and a sentence that you have a book coming out at the end, because that's the whole point. I mean, it's not the whole point, you know, getting your name out there is wonderful, but you also want to make sure that you're referencing your recent work, because again, we're building that author brand. We're referring people to our website so that if they enjoy your writing, they can find out where they can read more. Making sure to tailor your ask depending on who you're approaching. So when you're talking with radio hosts, sending them like a list of topics that you could talk about or that you're comfortable, you know, going in depth on is really helpful. Whereas you wouldn't necessarily send that to a book blogger who you're asking for a review or something like that. So thinking about how am I making this very easy for them to say yes? How am I going to kind of get in their ear and say like, I'd be a great, really interesting person to talk to, or you would really love this book because you love this other book, if it's a blogger or something like that. Again, making your ask an easier yes for them by kind of forming like, this is what we would talk about on your show, or this is what my guest article is about. You can even send them the guest article if you have it completed, and that's something that we do see good feedback on. Focusing on what makes your book special, because a lot of these people get multiple pitches a day, so you want to stand out. So that's going to be one of the most important things to lead with in the subject and in the first paragraph of your email. What makes your book special? Why is it unique? Why is it something that they're going to want to read? That's kind of the most important thing to emphasize when you are emailing people or even calling them to tell them about your book. All right, let me stop sharing my screen so I can see all of your lovely faces, and we can kind of get into the Q&A section. Marissa, I know you've been in the chat. Is there anything you wanted to talk a little bit more about out loud?
Yeah, one of the main things that you guys are asking about is like a Facebook author page versus, you know, your personal account. And just professionally, I think it makes a lot of sense to have an actual author page. You know, on one hand, people are not having to actually friend you in order to follow you. And, you know, then you can just keep your personal life separate. I say that with the caveat that it is nice for you to post some personal and behind the scenes things on your author page. But yes, having an actual professional author page, it's just more formal and professional, and people won't feel as awkward having to go friend you. And it just, for I don't know if there are other reasons, Ellen, I'm missing out on, but
No, I mean, that's
ads for people to like the page.
Yeah.
There's benefits to doing it.
Yeah, and you can run Facebook ads through a professional page, and I don't think you can do it through a personal page. But I mean, if you start having thousands of followers, that you may not necessarily want all those people to have access to every detail of your personal life. So I definitely think that having a professional page is really helpful. But I would look at your content from your personal page and say, yeah, I'm comfortable sharing that on, my professional page, because just talking about your book all the time is not the best strategy. So bringing personal details in there is really important. You just don't necessarily want to post every personal detail of your life for various reasons.
And Maria, I see you're asking, is it, if you already have followers on your author page, are you saying that you already have an author page and you're debating like a new one for a new book?
No, I started an author page off of my main account. I've got a lot of followers now, but I wish I could turn the clock back and do a separate professional page just for my books. And I have another book coming out. So is now the time to start a new professional author page when I already have a pretty good following on the author account versus the page I've already built that is off of my personal account.
Okay, so are people having to friend you right now, or do you actually have like a page that people can follow and it's maybe
Like just they'll
more
like
about
it and
books?
it's, yeah.
It's both. I can't tag anyone who hasn't friended me on my main account, but people can look at just my book page without being my friend.
I gotcha. So you have some like posts that are public, even if someone's not your friend. Yeah, I know it kind of sucks, but it would be ideal to do it. And there's a way, like when you go to make the actual author page,
Yeah.
it will give you the option of like, do you want to invite, people? And I think you can just be charming and, yourself in it and say like, hey, I'm, like I'm going to have, more announcements as books are coming out. And, I for those who want to follow along, you can do that. Now, I mean, I don't want to steer you wrong. I do know some authors that keep it with only the friend function, but you can also only have, I think, up to 5,000 friends. So like eventually, if you have more followers, even though someone can access that page, you're not going to show up in their news feed unless they are actually following an author page or they're your friend. So
Right.
it's just unfortunately a benefit to move it over that way.
Yeah, I
I
hear
think being
you.
honest with people is usually really helpful, and telling them, like, kind of like we said, like, hey, it would be super helpful, like as I migrate more to this author page, if you could, I'm going to stop posting here as much, so if you can go like and engage with that profile, that would be really, really helpful.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. That is a really, really good question. Sam, or I think it's Sue Cameron, maybe. Any advice about having an email list and email newsletter, one the author's doing and not trying to get someone else on it? Yes, absolutely. Very beneficial. It is a bit of work, but if you do, like with everything with promotion, if you just do some strategic planning on the front end, it won't feel as overwhelming. One of the most effective things we think you can do in order to build your email list is to offer some kind of lead generator or incentive, like a short story prequel to your book, or if you even have a free book in your same genre that you're willing to send out for signups, or a companion cookbook that shares recipes that a character cooks in your book, or maybe you have a book set in the South and it makes sense to do like a Southern cookbook with it, or just something in line with your author brand and the genre and your target audience that you can give away. Some authors just do like monthly giveaways for, it doesn't have to be as big of a Kindle. It can be for books that are comparable to yours, in genre and target audience. Just something that that you can advertise that says, hey, if you sign up for this, here's what you're going to get out of it. And then from there, you're able to, entice them to stay tuned for more. Now I know you're kind of just asking about getting one going, not necessarily like ready to start growing the following yet. And one of the best things is kind of the same advice with social media, is just being very authentic to your own voice and your author brand. And I know we say author brand and you're probably like, I have no idea what my author brand is, but it's, just what genre are you writing, and like how would you kind of explain what you're bringing to the table as an author in an elevator pitch? Are you writing Southern mysteries that appeal to a specific audience, or is there are there like other comp titles of books that you can think of that kind of describe your book in an elevator pitch? Just kind of think about define yourself as an author and what you are looking to put out there, and the readers that you're trying to reach, because that's not only important for what you're going to do with your email newsletter, but in anything you do as an author. If you're looking to make a career out of this, or to build readership with every book, then you want to be thinking about writing books in the same genre. Like if you write a thriller and then you do a children's book, that's perfectly okay, but just know that you're promoting both of those separately. So when you're doing an email newsletter, you like certain things you can put out there, or like behind the scenes of your writing process, or you can interview authors like who write comparably to you, and do a giveaway of their book to keep your readers engaged, or you can just give them updates or sneak peeks of a chapter of your book before it releases publicly. You can use it to some of those things Ellen was mentioning earlier on about what to ask of your friends and family. Using your email newsletter is a great way to put those asks out there, right before you get to launch. Remind them, hey, one of the best things you can do for me as an author and your very best friend is to go leave a review for my book online at these places, XYZ, list them in there. So I don't know, like, is it Sam or Sue? I don't know if I'm fully answering your question or if you have a follow-up there. And she might be on mute just on the chat, so we'll give her a second. But other than that, am I missing anything, Ellen?
No, we have a blog post coming up about author branding next week. So I will send that to Emily next week. And if you want to forward it along, it just kind of covers some of the ways to think about it, from colors of your book cover all the way down the line to, what Marissa was talking about as well.
Yeah, and I would encourage you to sign up for some author newsletters. I'm not sure what genre everyone is in, but Jenny Milchman, I'll type her name here. She has been in the industry for a while, and she writes thrillers, mostly set in the Northeast. I think she has one Southern thriller, but she, I don't know, hers are just very personal. They're full of information. She has done so much networking with other authors, so they all support her, and then she puts things in her newsletters that supports them. And it's a good idea. What we were talking about over chat earlier about just crossover promotion with other authors. So she's a great one to follow. Ellen mentioned Ed Amar, also a great one. JL is an author who writes YA fantasy. Her newsletters are just chock full of like news and information and beautifully designed. And so I think just at least sign up for a few and get a feel for it, and then decide what is right for you. You don't need to email everyone every week. No one wants an email every week necessarily. Like once a month or so is fine. Like like Ellen was saying, don't just start overwhelming yourself. Like think, okay, I want to at least make an initial announcement. And then as news comes about, you can, start doing things every couple of months. And as you get closer to launch, maybe you'll have more for once a month and, that sort of thing.
And I think signing up for newsletters in different genres, I mean, your own is going to be the most important. Like Deborah, if you write memoirs, you want to look at popular memoirs, sign up for those. But also like other genres can probably give you ideas that you never would have thought of, and ways to spin things that you could do for your book. So thinking about that is good too. Yeah. And then I know Deborah asked about a list of items to have in your press kit. ISBN for each edition of your book. So print, if you have a hardcover and a paperback, both of those, if you have them available, and ebook, as well as the price. Page count can be helpful too. Your name everywhere is good. A contact email, that might be your publisher. If you have a publicist, that might be your publicist. It might be you. I would encourage you to do maybe like an info@ellenwhitfield.com email address for those kind of things, because you don't want to give your personal email out to everybody. So that's really helpful. But the nitty gritty info like the ISBN and things like that is important for booksellers and librarians to be able to order your book. But then again, it's almost kind of like the pitch, you want to write a headline that's going to stand out to people and make it clear what's unique, what's special about your book. And then kind of get into that a little bit, but then back cover copy, which, will tell everybody a little bit about the book. I think that's everything that I would say you have to have. The book cover is helpful, and a bio.
And your author headshot.
Yes.
I mean, basically think of the press release as like a one sheet of information for you as an author and the book that you have coming out. So yeah, your launch date, ISBN, all those like book details are important, just to like, so for someone to easily copy and paste or look up more information, your website URL, your social media handles.
Yes.
that sort of thing, and just the book description and,
Right.
how the book came to be and something
Because different
enticing.
people will use the press kit for different things. Some people are going to use it for ordering. Some people are going to use it to say, oh, do I want to read this book? So you kind of want to get as much on there as you can.
Yeah.
So Marissa and Ellen, I have a question for you. I am a recent author. This is hypothetical. It's not true. And I've just come into $1,000 and I want to spend it on promoting my book. And I want to get the biggest bang for my buck I can get for $1,000. What would you recommend that I do with it? Should I spend it on Facebook ads? Should I get a table at the Gaithersburg Book Fair? Should I hire someone to write a newsletter for me? If I only had a finite amount of money, how would you rank priority of the most effective things to do?
Oh, it's a really good question. And there is definitely no crystal ball, or else fewer books would be published because everyone would know exactly what, we've been doing this for 22 years and it's still surprising sometimes of what takes off. Part of it comes down to genre and your target audiences. The reader newsletter ads that Ellen brought up, I think are just like one of the most simple and cost-friendly things that can be done. Like BookBub is going to cost at least $1,000, but there are some that are like e-reader news today and bargainbooksy.com, like these other smaller ones that they only cost anywhere from like $25 to $150. And they, that way, if you're promoting a price special of your ebook at some point after launch, you're getting in front of thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of avid readers of the genre in just one fell swoop. So like, I think that in particular is really important. One of a free, thing that you can be sure that you're doing is make sure that you're, and this is something that Bold Story Press, would already be doing for you guys, but making sure that your Amazon and other sales page descriptions are just fully fleshed out. And as you get accolades and endorsements for the book, you can add that A+ content, like that beautifully designed, graphics,
Banners.
for blurbs, like just making sure that when people are getting to your sales pages, it's as enticing as possible. And like, I'm trying to think for like another, if your goal is to get into bookstores, one of my favorite recommendations is to get involved with your regional independent bookseller association. For example, in the South, there's the Southern Independent Bookseller Association. The acronym is SIBA, S-I-B-A. If you just look up Montana Regional Bookseller Association, or wherever you live, you will easily come across the website, and they have opportunities for advertising. But I would say the best use of your money is going to go to their fall trade show, where you can simply just put your budget towards paying for attendance, the registration fee, and your hotel, and you can network with hundreds of booksellers for 3 days. It's amazing. You don't have to do a thing over there. You don't have to get a booth. You don't have to do anything. You can just go and be yourself and attend events and naturally talk with people. Or you can actually sign up to be on a panel event, or do what's like, they have these speed dating events with booksellers. And, I think that's one of the best bangs for your buck. Not to be like overly salesy, but we do have a DIY program that like would help authors with that kind of budget, where we basically teach you more in depth with everything that we've talked about today, of like how to be your own publicist and put all this into play. And then you can use that budget for like award submissions and industry reviews and things like that.
Talk with you a little bit more about your individual goals and kind of give
Right.
personalized recommendations as to what you should do to help you most reach those goals, because everybody's going to have a different goal. I mean, if people's goal is to make money, then maybe reader newsletters are not the best fit for those people, but for sales numbers, they're excellent. So it's just going to kind of depend on, again, going back to the presentation, what your overall goals are too.
Yeah.
Will you put the URL for your DIY
Oh yeah, for
program
sure.
in the chat? Yeah, I think
Um,
people might want to check that out. But you didn't mention Facebook ads.
Yeah, so Facebook ads, I was just about to say, I mean, basically, you can start at a budget of like $5 a day, but we always encourage to do at least $300 a month, which is about $10 a day. And there are some authors that go much higher than that. And so it's just, it can easily eat up your budget. But if one of it can be effective, like let's just say you want to do $300 a month for 3 months and you want to build up your page likes for your Facebook, or you want to use that towards an email. They like on Facebook, you can do an email list ad. And maybe you just want to put that full budget towards garnering people for your email list. Then you have that direct contact with authors. So yes, it can be beneficial to do that. Just know that it can eat up the budget pretty quickly, and you will then have to like work those contacts. But yeah, you definitely can. And just depending on who you're targeting, you might have to spend more in order to get in front of more people, obviously, like, because it's all kind of budgeting against other authors who are spending and targeting, the same comparable authors and everything. So, but yeah, I think that's really great. Is there anything else I'm missing, Ellen, that would be
I
like?
don't think so. Those are, yeah, I mean, I think
There's
those are
other free
probably,
stuff you can do. Like you can
Right.
reach out to your local newspaper. You can reach out to your alumni publication. There's a lot you can do on your own for free. But as far as money, unless you're spending it on hiring someone for expertise and contacts, then it's,
Right.
yeah, Facebook ads or newsletter ads, or going to the Regional Bookseller Association, I think would be my top uses of budget.
That's clever. I would not think of that, the Regional Bookseller
Oh, I
Association.
love them.
Oh,
It's
that
like
sounded
deep
awesome.
secret.
It's so
Yeah.
fun. I
Yeah,
mean, you have to be an author who's comfortable with networking and talking about yourself, which not everybody is, and that's fine, but it's so much fun, and it really is rewarding to make those kind of contacts, not only with other authors, but with the booksellers and people who are there too.
Right. Well, Jenny, Louisa, Aruna, Patsy, I think road trip, Bold Story Press authors, next regional sales.
Yes. Oh, and that's
Absolutely.
fun. You have your little group and you go together and cheer each other on. That's perfect.
Yeah.
And
When
could
is
even
the
set up a
next
luncheon with
Southern?
booksellers like for that weekend or something.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know. You could, a cocktail in the hotel lobby for Bold Story Press authors or something.
Yeah, cool.
Sorry, Patsy, you were saying something.
No, I was going to say, when is the next Southern Regional Book Sale?
I want to say it's mid-August. I know it's in New Orleans, which is actually where I'm based. It changes every year. They also have like the fall trade show is your main event. And it's really like the one that I would recommend focusing on.
Yeah.
But they do have like certain virtual, like mini virtual events throughout the year. And I would recommend just signing up for their email newsletter wherever you are. Sign up for your regional association's email newsletter, because they'll send a call out for authors and publishers on opportunities. And I mean, just get to know what they're doing. Like before you ever pitch anyone or anything, from media to bookstores to anything, do your homework and be aware of what they're doing, because the last thing you want to do is ask for something and then they ignore all of your emails going forward because you clearly never paid attention to, if you're going to ask for something, show the respect of knowing what they do, basically. So I would just say follow along a little bit and like sign up for their email newsletter first. But yeah, it's going to be in August or September in New Orleans.
I know, I'm like not being able to find it.
It's been virtual the last couple of years, so they're finally going back in person. Supposed to. We'll see.
Could we see that site for your DI?
Oh yes, sorry, I meant to put that in there. Let me copy and paste the hyperlink. Yes, there is a Midwest. There's Midwest and there's like
New Atlantic, California. It
Atlantic.
used to have a Southern and Northern, but they merged into one. Texas has its
Mountains
own,
and
I think.
Plains. Texas
Yes.
had its own, but they now have kind of merged with Mountains
Merged.
and Plains, from what I understand.
There you go.
Oh,
And that's,
great.
yeah. And most of them have a list of states on there. So if you're not sure, like me, and geography is not your strong point, you can go look at the most likely suspects and check their list.
Yeah, I don't know, you guys were asking about the DIY program. We're happy to tailor, like, it's still in beta testing for us. Like, it's like a year into us doing this program, and we're kind of beta testing it, I don't know, for the first year or two. So, you know, if you are interested in any of that and you write us, we'll make sure to just tailor something that makes sense for you. Because you might not need specifically within those packages. But yeah, sorry, were there any other questions that we were missing?
I think Deborah asked about blurbs somewhere in here
Yeah.
and book clubs.
Those are just so great to be able to put in your press kit, even on your email signature, whenever you're writing to a bookstore.
It's not something that's make it or break it, but that's definitely one of the goals of these kind of like networking events and networking with other authors online, to form those relationships and be comfortable with asking for those. If you're not in a place where you can do it for your first book, maybe for your second book, that will be an option. You know, you don't necessarily have to have those. You could maybe get a Kirkus review. They have paid options, and Forward and Publishers Weekly, they all have paid options. So you can kind of go that route if there's not somebody you feel like you can, another author you feel like you can ask for a blurb. And then hopefully you can form those relationships so that you can ask for that for book 2.
And I see someone was asking about, like, you know, you're saying your website started as a blog, but you aren't, you know, now that you have a book out, like your blog itself is not really getting that much attention. I'm kind of looking on your website to see if I have any specific ideas. It looks like you are the children's author. So, I mean, you could try things like interviewing other children's authors, or interviewing teachers, or school librarians, or, you know, try something where you're bringing other people onto your website so that they are then sharing about the interview on their social media. You obviously can, you know, post about your blogs on social media. You can also repurpose some of your blogs to run on third-party sites. Now, just know that if a site's going to take your blog, they want it to be exclusive. So you need to adjust it enough or pull it down from your website. But basically, those blog posts aren't lost. You could also run them on third-party sites to then get more traffic back to your, you know, you could write them as a guest post for a children's book blogger, or a like school library journal, or, you know, different sites that reach your audience, and that would then link back to your website. I don't know if there's anything else I'm missing there, Ellen. Oh.
No, I think if you have a newsletter, including that in there, I think a lot of times people like to be able to have like a regular feature. So if you do a monthly interview with an author, that can be something that it's gonna happen. You need to set it up, and it gives readers something to look forward to every month with some regularity.
And it's great you have the kind of call to action on your website with the receive exclusive author deals, if they sign up for your email list. So you're already kind of in that mindset of using that newsletter strategically. Let's see. Any other questions that we've missed in the chat, or just that have come up? Yeah. Louisa, I think you are on mute.
Oh no.
Louisa, you're on mute.
I'm very anxious to hear, though.
I know.
Sorry.
Okay.
So let's say you get a great, because I talk with my hands, right?
Yeah, we knew you were talking.
I did too.
So if I'm waving my hands around, I must have something interesting to say. Let's hope. So let's say, for example, you get a great interview with somebody, and you have this wonderful thing that you can put up on your website. Fabulously interesting interview with, let's say, Stephen King, whatever. How do you let people know that it's there and that they can come to your site and read it there? I mean, how do you get attention to that? So, I mean, I post something wonderful, but then what?
Like on social media specifically? Sorry, I got distracted by Sue's comment in the thing, but because one thing I'm thinking of is like hashtagging and tagging, but I want to make sure I'm understanding right. Are you talking specifically on social media or your website?
Well, wherever it might be.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like, so on social media, there are certain hashtags that you would be able to use, like hashtag Bookstagram would reach like a wide range of avid readers who like cover books on Instagram, or like tagging, like let's say you, for example, one of the posts that we do, we do a lot of reading lists on our website, and then we go on social media and we post, oh, check out this post on our website. It features these authors, and we tag each of the authors with the hopes that they will then go share it on their story or comment on our post and help with our engagement, or share the post in their newsletter. So like actually tag, like strategically coming up with posts where you tag the outlet that maybe you were featured in, so maybe they will like it or share it. But hashtags are how to reach someone. Like tagging would be reaching, like tagging
At
someone
certain
so that you
people.
hope they'll do something. But hashtagging would just be reaching
topic.
people without having someone having to do something. So there might be another hashtag example, like I don't know, not a social media user myself, and there are people on our team who are better at this than me.
It depends on the platform. So Twitter is going to be more like general things, or, you can even tag people who you see are talking about that. If somebody's talking about that topic, you can tag that person, but just tagging it like am writing, or, writing updates, or whatever the case may be. Obviously there's going to be different tags for different subjects. That's going to get in front of anybody who's searching for that subject matter. Same thing kind of with Instagram as well. But really, yeah, I mean, both features will be helpful to get it in front of more eyes.
Yeah, and I mean, you can literally Google like hashtags that are helpful for writers, and there are some like free generator tools that will help you come up with hashtags. But again, I think the most effective use of your time would be to look at an author who is in your genre or outside of your genre, it really doesn't matter, but an author who's doing well on social media, and see what kind of tags they use. Once your following grows, you won't need to use as much of the hashtags, like, because your following's going, they're going to help you
Do that work for you.
Some authors will have what's known as a street team, where they have like 5 or 6 people that are just really close friends and family or fans of their writing, that they know when you post something, like they need to go boost it and like reshare it. So like if you have, again, that close knit group that you give that direction to, like, please go like it, please share it to your story on Instagram or Facebook, or please share it on Twitter. Just having that group to help you get it started can be helpful. Then using hashtags, and then you've kind of got your built-in audience eventually. Paid ads, unfortunately, are one of the best and most effective ways of getting that larger following, because when you're doing a paid ad, you're targeting fans of other comparable writers and letting them know about your work, and so then they become interested that way. It is grueling, time intensive, and sometimes expensive work, but hopefully I'm answering your question. I'm sorry I got a little like sidebarred with the chat that was going on.
Well, we are running out of time here, but there's one last question, I think, from Erica. If you guys could answer that, then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more important to have engaged followers,
100%.
because your numbers will grow organically. But keeping kind of that core engagement is going to be super helpful, because they're going to see you as a person rather than a book cover, and they're going to see you as a friend, somebody they want to support. So making sure that you're engaging with your readers through social media or your reader newsletters or what have you, is definitely going to be more important, because the numbers will come.
And
Okay.
Sue, I was just telling you really quickly about finding the local library contact. I mean, in a cold mail or cold email situation, you can just like address it as
Attention
book
book
buyer.
buyer.
But really just call, be human with them, and just ask them, like, let them know what's up. Like, hi, I'm a new author. I'm trying to I live here. I'm trying to go in person if you can, all the better. just ask them. We do the same thing because contacts change all the time at libraries. So it's not like you're, writing to someone in a position that has necessarily been in that same position for years and years and years. Like, it changes. So it's okay to call and ask.
Okay. Well, Marissa and Ellen, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for
it was
having us. It was a pleasure.
so much great information, and I really appreciate all of your wisdom and your ideas and insights. And I'll share the link with everyone if you want to take a look, if you missed anything or want to take a look. And Marissa and Ellen said that they also offer a short call for authors. If you're interested in signing up for a call with them, just email me and I'll put you in touch with them. So thank you everyone for being here, and good luck to you with your writing and with your book selling.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks.
Oh, goodness. I'm trying to read.